There is a universe inside your skull. 100 billion neurons ignite, crafting every sensation, every memory, every feeling you have ever known. We can map these pathways. We can watch a flicker of light in the brain as you recognize a face or solve a problem. We see the machinery in motion. But there is one ghost in this machine that science has never been able to locate. The beginning, where in the silent, fathomless dark of the mind does a thought first spark into existence? What is the prime mover? You can have a thought that changes your life, an idea that builds a city, a melody that defines a generation, and it arrives unannounced as if from nowhere, a gift from an unknown sender. How amazing is that? For centuries, we have lived with a simple answer. The brain creates thought, just like a factory producing goods. It is a closed system. Your experiences, your genetics, your biology, these are the raw materials, and your consciousness is the finished product, sealed securely within you. But that neat explanation is starting to fall apart. On the frontiers of physics, researchers whisper about quantum events in the brain's deepest structures, processes that seem connected to the very foundation of space-time. In ancient traditions, from the Himalayan highlands to the schools of Athens, sages spoke not of a brain that generates, but of a mind that receives. They described a living ocean of intelligence, a cosmic repository of all that has ever been thought or known, an unseen field from which our own minds draw inspiration, just as our lungs draw air. This video is an exploration, not a declaration of truth. I invite you to hold your inner knowing as the highest authority. This path is for those who sense that the mystery of consciousness is far grander than we have been led to believe. The story of who you are is not a simple one, and it may not even be yours alone. If you feel called to question what is real, you have found your place. Please subscribe. We must begin with the unsettling foundation upon which everything else is built. If your brain doesn't invent your thoughts, what or who does? The modern picture of the human mind is a masterpiece of biological engineering. We peer into the brain and see a galaxy of neurons, each one a living wire, firing in precise, intricate patterns. Electrical impulses leap across synaptic gaps, weaving together sensory data from the outside world into the coherent reality you experience right now. It is a system of immense complexity, a self-contained electrochemical engine. In this model, you are the sum of your firings. Every joy, every sorrow, every moment of brilliant insight is a product of this wetware, born from the material world and contained entirely within it. This view is powerful, it is elegant, and it is profoundly incomplete. For when we ask the simplest questions, the elegant model begins to falter and vast silent gaps appear. Consider the birth of a truly original thought. Not a memory, not a calculation, but a sudden, spontaneous creation. A painter sees a new color combination that has never been tried. A physicist intuits a new law of nature before any evidence exists. Where did the initial pattern for that thought originate? If the brain is only a processor of existing information, data from your senses and your past, how does it generate something genuinely new? The system seems to be pulling information from a source beyond its own recorded history. And what about memory itself? For over a century, scientists have searched for the engram, the specific, physical trace of a single memory stored in the brain. But no one has ever found one yet. Memories can be lost and recovered. They can be invoked by stimulating broad regions of the brain, but they do not live in any single cell or molecule. They seem to exist as ghostly patterns, defying a fixed physical location, like a song that exists without a singer. These are not failures of science, but invitations pointing beyond the visible architecture of the brain. Some neuroscientists have suggested that consciousness is not found in the individual neurons at all, but in the brain's holistic, unified electromagnetic field, a coherent energy pattern that integrates the firing of billions of cells into a single eye. Here, thought is not a series of disconnected sparks, but a continuous wave of information. Going deeper still into the quantum realm, theories now propose that the very scaffolding of our neurons contains structures so small they obey the strange laws of quantum physics. Within these microscopic channels, the mind may not be a closed loop at all. It may be an open system, an antenna tuned to the fundamental vibrations of space-time itself. The beautiful machine in our heads may not be a generator of thought. It may be the most sophisticated receiver in the known universe, designed to catch whispers from an ocean we are only just beginning to realize surrounds us. If the brain is a receiver, then the universe must be a broadcaster. This idea compels us to search for the signals, the invisible transmissions that carry information across space and time. This search takes us beyond conventional biology into a radical and elegant theory of nature's memory. It suggests that every system in the universe, from a swirling galaxy to a forming crystal to a thinking animal, is shaped by an invisible blueprint, a field of information. This is not a field of energy like gravity or electromagnetism. It is a field of pattern, a non-local memory bank that accumulates the experience of a species, a substance, or even a habit. This is the theory of morphic resonance. It proposes that once something happens in the universe, it makes it easier for that same thing to happen again. The memory of the event is stored not in the past, but in a present, active field that all similar systems can tune into. Consider the strange phenomenon of crystallization. When chemists synthesize a new compound, getting it to form crystals for the very first time can be notoriously difficult. Yet once the first crystal is formed anywhere in the world, the same compound suddenly begins to crystallize much more easily in other laboratories, even those with no conceivable physical connection. It is as if the molecule has learned how to organize itself, and this memory is now available globally. The morphic field of that substance has been established. This same principle has been observed in the animal kingdom. In a series of famous experiments stretching over decades, generations of rats were trained to escape from a water maze. The findings were startling. Later generations learned the maze significantly faster than the first, even when they were not descendants of the previously trained rats. The genetic explanation falls short. The theory of morphic resonance, however, offers a startling alternative. Each rat that solved the puzzle contributed to a collective rat maze-solving field. The solution itself became a stronger, more accessible pattern in nature, resonating across time to make the task easier for others. The memory was not in their bodies, it was in the field. Now we must turn this lens upon ourselves. If this organizing memory permeates all of nature, it cannot simply stop at the boundary of the human mind. The implications are profound. It suggests that your brain may function less like a computer that generates thoughts, and more like a finely tuned radio receiver, capable of dialing into countless frequencies of information. When you have a sudden insight, a flash of intuition, or learn a new skill, you may not be creating something from nothing. You may be the first person in your environment to successfully tune into a pre-existing field of information, a thought form that was already waiting to be received. This reframes the very nature of learning and creativity. It is not an act of solitary invention, but of collective resonance. And it raises a deeply unsettling question. If our minds are constantly resonating with these shared, invisible fields, are the thoughts we believe to be our most private, our most personal, truly our own? Or are we all participating in a silent, planetary conversation, its echoes shaping our consciousness in ways we have never dared to imagine? This idea of a shared, planetary memory is not new. Before the language of fields and resonance, ancient traditions were already mapping this hidden dimension of reality with a different vocabulary. They spoke of a universal mind. In Hindu philosophy, they called it Akasha, the primordial element from which all others emerge. For them, Akasha was not empty space. It was a subtle, vibrant substance, a living ether that holds a perfect, indelible record of every thought, every word, and every action that has ever occurred. This cosmic archive, often called the Akashic Records, is not a dusty library of the past. It is described as a living, dynamic field of consciousness, a dimension where time dissolves and the complete story of the cosmos exists as a single, accessible present moment. Sages and mystics throughout history have claimed to be able to quiet their individual minds to such a degree that they could perceive this field directly, reading its contents to understand the deeper currents of reality. They were not looking outward but inward, into the very substrate of consciousness itself. For a long time, such ideas were relegated to the realm of myth and metaphor. But now, in a strange and beautiful convergence, modern physics is beginning to describe the universe in ways that sound uncannily similar. The physicist David Bohm, for example, proposed that the reality we experience, the world of separate objects in linear time, is merely an explicate order, an unfolded projection of a much deeper, implicate order. In this implicate realm, everything is enfolded within everything else. All points in space and time are fundamentally connected in an unbroken whole. Information is not stored in any one place. It is distributed holographically throughout the entire fabric of existence. What is this implicate order, this undivided ground of being containing all information, but another name for the Akasha? It is a scientific model for a universal memory, a field where separation is an illusion. Here, the past is not gone. It is simply enfolded, waiting to be accessed. This bridge between the mystical and the physical finds its footing in the human psyche. The pioneering psychologist Carl Jung, while studying the minds of his patients, discovered patterns that could not be explained by their personal histories. He found universal symbols, myths, and instincts that appeared in dreams and delusions across all cultures, in people who had no knowledge of one another. He called this deeper layer of mind the collective unconscious. It is a shared psychic inheritance, a reservoir of ancestral memory containing the archetypes, the primal figures of the hero, the mother, the trickster, that structure our deepest experiences of life. Jung, a man of science, had mapped a psychological dimension of the universal mind. Whether we call it the Akashic field, the implicate order, or the collective unconscious, we are circling the same profound truth. Humanity has always known, on some intuitive level, that it is part of something larger. That moment of sudden inspiration, that inexplicable feeling of déjà vu, the shiver of recognition you feel in a powerful story. Perhaps these are not tricks of brain chemistry. Perhaps they are momentary ripples from that deeper ocean, glimpses of the universal mind touching your own. The evidence suggests that consciousness is not an isolated flicker in a biological machine, but a fundamental, non-local property of the universe itself. And this realization forces us to confront the most intimate question a human can ask. If the thoughts I think are not truly mine, then who or what am I? This question dissolves the very ground beneath our feet. Our entire identity, our sense of self, is built upon the belief that we are the thinker of our thoughts, the author of our actions, the keeper of our memories. This I, this separate ego, feels like the center of our world. But this new perspective suggests this self is not a source, but a channel. It is a localized point of awareness, a unique lens through which a vast universal intelligence can experience itself. The feeling of being an isolated individual, struggling to create, to understand, to survive, may be a profound misunderstanding of our purpose. Our role may not be to generate thoughts, but to receive them with ever-increasing clarity. Our work is not to build a self, but to become a better antenna for the self that already encompasses all things. This is not a new or radical idea. It is the central, esoteric teaching of many of the world's great wisdom traditions. In the non-dual philosophies of Advaita Vedanta, the ultimate truth is expressed in a simple, world-shattering phrase: Atman is Brahman. The individual soul is and always has been one with the universal consciousness. The path to liberation is not to become God, but to realize you were never separate from it. In the Dzogchen teachings of Tibetan Buddhism, awareness is described as a boundless, clear sky. Thoughts are merely clouds that arise and pass within it. They do not belong to the sky, and they cannot harm it. The goal is to cease identifying with the passing clouds and to rest in the vast, luminous nature of the sky itself, the primordial awareness that is your true nature. We have been taught to see ourselves as the anxious, striving thinker. But these traditions invite us to see ourselves as the silent, spacious awareness in which all thoughts arise and dissolve. They suggest that what you truly are is not the voice in your head, but the silence that listens to it. This leads to one final, awe-inspiring possibility. What if every thought of genius, every act of unconditional love, every flash of creative insight is not random noise from the field, but a direct invitation from that deeper intelligence calling us to awaken and participate in the conscious evolution of reality itself? And so we arrive not at an answer, but at a more beautiful question. The journey has led us to the edge of a hidden world, a dimension of silent, interconnected being that may be the true source of our inner life. For a moment, be still. Consider the very last thought that passed through your mind. Where did it come from? Feel its texture, its weight. Can you trace it back to its origin point, or did it simply arrive? Like a raindrop falling on the surface of a still lake. You are not the lake. You are not the raindrop. You are the silent, spacious awareness that witnesses both. For your entire life, you have been told that you are the thinker. But what if your true identity is the space in which thinking happens? This changes everything. We spend so much of our lives trying to control our thoughts, to solve our problems, to think our way to peace or enlightenment. We wrestle with the voices in our head, believing they are us, and that our freedom lies in winning the argument. But if thoughts simply arrive from a field beyond you, then the path to freedom may be entirely different. Could awakening be less about thinking and more about listening? Could it be a process of surrender, of becoming so quiet that you can finally hear the subtle intelligence that is always broadcasting, always available, just beneath the noise of the personal mind? We have asked if you are the one thinking your thoughts. But perhaps the final mystery is even more profound. We assume that we are a consciousness that has thoughts. What if instead we are thoughts being had by a universal consciousness? Brief, beautiful dreams that the universe is having to know itself. The journey into these questions has no final destination, it only deepens. If this exploration stirred something within you, stay close to that feeling. Subscribe, and thanks for watching.